All right. Hello, everyone. We are live. Just give me 1 second. I'm gonna fire off Instagram, and then we are ready to talk anxiety today. All right.
Woohoo!
Instagram is on. Hi, Tracy. How are you?
Hi, I'm in a very different climate than you are.
Yes. Yes, indeed. Um, okay. So, um, you know, it's a fascinating topic because I always remember how a friend of mine who is a therapist in New York City, she says that during the holidays and before the holidays, during the holidays, it's the busiest time that she sees clients that she has not seen sometimes in a while, or people need more sessions, and because of anxiety and because of what the holidays are causing. So when you and I talked about doing talking about anxiety, I think that was a really interesting topic to do that before the holidays. But of course, like if somebody is anxious, most likely they also have anxiety. They also experience anxiety beyond just the holidays, right? And so I think let's talk about that. Do you want to introduce yourself? Dr. Tracy Potter is here with us today. She is a new friend that I met in Boulder. We actually met at an event for like-minded people, practitioners who get together, and a year ago, and then we became fast friends. She moved to Boulder, and so we've been spending a lot of time together, and I find it really fascinating the work that she does. So, do you want to just introduce yourself and just tell
Sure.
us a little bit about yourself and why are you doing this work?
Sure, happily. My name is Dr. Tracy Potter, PhD kind of doctor, not the MD kind of doctor. And I call myself a functional anxiety detective because I help people find and fix the hidden causes of therapy resistant anxiety, meaning the kind of you go to therapy and it's just not working. It's the kind of anxiety a lot of people are told is a genetic chemical imbalance. I don't really buy into that theory. I hope we can debunk that a little bit here. And I got into this. My dad was a psychiatrist, so actually he around the holidays got real busy, and and I grew up helping out in his office. And so I was always told it's a genetic chemical imbalance. And then I started having panic attacks at the age of 19. And long story short, I started out as a medical anthropologist. So I was actually really interested in how different cultures, when they started adopting an industrialized lifestyle, started developing all these chronic illnesses and mental health issues that we see in the industrialized world that we're being told are genetic. And if it's genetic, the whole human species is genetically defective. And what I realized is that we're so chronically ill and mentally ill because we're not living in alignment with our evolutionary biology. We're not living how we evolved to live. We are anxious, we are malnourished, we are overstressed. Our bodies are trying so hard to protect us, and anxiety is like a smoke alarm trying to get our attention. And so I was a journalist for a long time, but when through the pandemic, I went through some personal things where I was lived in a house with toxic mold, peeling lead paint, and then I also ended up with Lyme all at the same time. It was life threatening. I had like 100 symptoms. I could barely function. It almost ruined my life. And the first symptom was anxiety. That was the warning shot my body was trying to tell me. I had excellent self care, and so I just after the combination of that and the pandemic and what's happening in mental health, I just felt like I really needed to focus here. So here I am.
Yeah, yeah, and it's so fascinating because like you're helping a lot of people today who are showing signs of anxiety, and they've done a lot of the conventional stuff, and whether it's medications or even even as an herbalist, I will say that I mean there are herbs that can calm you down, but they never really address the root cause of a problem with anxiety, right? So that's why we wanted to talk about this today. So for those of you like the surprising and the overlooked causes of anxiety from a point of view of anthropologist and someone who really understands that there is just so much more to anxiety than what we are told, even by function. I think by functional folks have also are
Yeah.
overlooking a lot of them. So let's talk about them in just a second. For those of you who are joining us live, do you want to we have more people on Instagram. Do you guys want to just share with us, like, what would you like to hear today from Dr. Tracy, and whatever feels comfortable for you? Maybe if you want to share like what does your anxiety looks like, or if you want to share like maybe what have you done to address anxiety that you are dealing with. I remember my anxiety is not something I've dealt with. Like generally, mental health stuff is not something that I deal with when I have a crisis. But I did have an anxiety attack one time in my life, and I'll never forget it because it was so scary. But mine was due to low thyroid function. So we're gonna talk about that a little bit later today, of what are some of the surprising causes, because hormones can be one of them as well. And that's, I think, part of the complexity of anxiety, right? Is that it can be so multifactorial. The
Right.
same way, like weight loss resistance. So many of you are like messaging us and saying, "I've got the stubborn weight. What do I do?" And I feel like it's so unfair for anyone to answer that question about like anxiety or fatigue or weight gain, because it can be so many different things that just like pointing people to one supplement, one herb, or one modality, like, oh, just do that deep breath work, is just unfair to answer that question, because it can be more complex, but it can be maybe simpler too once you nail it what it is.
Right.
So share, you guys, whatever. So either what you want to hear from us today. What is your story with anxiety? Like, how does it show up for you, and what, or maybe what have you done so far that has or has not worked for you? So do you want to? Shall we just like maybe dive in? And since we named the topic for today, surprising and overlooked causes, do you want to just talk about more like the usual suspects that a lot of people have appreciation for, and then maybe the real surprising ones and overlooked ones?
Okay, great. That's a great order. So some of the low-hanging fruit is people aren't sleeping and they're eating crap and they're just hopped up on caffeine and then dealing with their emotions using alcohol. So if you watch TV, if you watch movies, that's what's modeled to us. All the holiday movies, everyone's drinking a lot of alcohol, eating a lot of sugar, and everyone looks like a supermodel. And and that's just not how human biology works, right? And so a lot of people don't realize you can have a genetic caffeine intolerance, so where you're so sensitive to caffeine that it drives anxiety, and it actually doesn't give you energy. It's like living off a credit card. It's borrowing energy from your future self. And I'm not here to tell grown-ups whether they can drink alcohol or not. That's your call. But if you reach for alcohol when you're stressed or sad, or even as the only way to celebrate, um, it's a brain toxin, it's a liver toxin, it's a cellular toxin, it's a cytotoxin. And so, if you're anxious and your body doesn't feel safe, poisoning it and pushing it with stress hormones, just saying, wake up, try harder, that's not really going to help. Your body also, I see people aren't eating enough protein, especially high quality protein, not factory farm meat, but like grass fed, wild game, that kind of things. People are often don't have their blood sugar balanced. So, eating tons of carbs and simple sugars and things like that, not enough, veggies and, just kind of like basic nutrition, self-care, poor circadian rhythms, like staying up late on devices, all these things. And these are the kind of things that we might know intellectually, but we're not closing the knowing and doing gap. We haven't had better alternatives modeled to us. That's where coaching and community comes in, when we surround ourselves with people that make good choices, or we have accountability, support, guidance, tips, tricks, tools, whatever. Then it suddenly takes something that seems so insurmountable and makes it simple. So that's just like the low-hanging fruit, is the self-care. And you can do nervous system practices, meditation, breathwork, visualization. But if you have something going on in your biology that's driving up the chemicals that cause anxiety, then you're going to need to dig deeper. So you want me to name some of those things?
Yeah, let's do it. Yes.
Okay. So I think a lot of you may have heard, especially if you're hanging around Magdalena, you know a lot of stuff a lot of people don't know, because she's so thorough. But you've probably heard of the gut-brain axis. So if your gut microbiome, you have inflammation in your gut, you have imbalances in your gut microbiome, then they're going to be signaling chemicals to your brain. The gut-brain barrier may be compromised. So if you have inflammation in your gut, you're pretty sure to have inflammation in your brain. And then that can drive up, some of the chemicals like glutamate and other things that cause anxiety. So anything that drives up glutamate or causes inflammation will trigger anxiety and sometimes depression and even severe psychosis, right? So that's the gut, that's the foundation. Then there are neurotoxins. So these are things that are poisons to the brain and nervous system. They cause neuroinflammation, which is inflammation of the brain and nervous system. And so all kinds of toxic chemicals in our environment, but some of the most notable ones are toxic mold. Magdalena and I have both been through that multiple times, haven't we? And yeah. And so toxic mold, heavy metals, if you have like metal fillings, I've had clients having panic attacks, chronic fatigue. I mean, you name it, thyroid issues, and they only have like 2 metal fillings in their mouth. And when they take those out and deal with some other stuff too, they can't believe that just that little amount of metal in their mouth could be making them so sick. So there are different people have different heavy metals. Getting hair dye, they use coal tar, which is full of heavy metals for hair dye. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. So, just detoxifying your environment and your body, but be careful with these cleanses where people go out and they're like, this cleanse, that cleanse. When you want to detoxify, you have to do it carefully in the right order so you don't make yourself really sick, especially if you have heavy metals and mold. You got to be real careful because you can make yourself so sick. And, I don't recommend, the master cleanse or, just juice cleanses and things like that. They don't support all your detox pathways.
In fact, I'm really glad you're talking about this because, you and I have a common friend who went through a mold and a parasite exposure. I also added parasites here to neurotoxins.
Yes.
That's another really surprising cause for a lot of people. I cannot tell you how many people I've met who say that once they did a parasite cleanse, their whole mental landscape has changed. So both Dr. Tracy and I have a common friend who had an exposure to a parasite and mold. And then she went and did a detox protocol, which makes total sense, and just went too fast. And that ended up in psychosis. And so landed her at a hospital, an actual neurology ER unit. So this stuff can be really serious. And so,
and this is a really smart, super capable person
who actually knows this stuff. So, so that's where I think so one of the things I also want to tell you guys, because we've always get so many requests for like working with me, and my bandwidth is limited. Dr. Tracy does work with private patients as well. And, one of the things is this, like, if you've done a number of baseline work around anxiety, right? Like you've cleaned up your diet, you're already on an anti-inflammatory diet, like you're doing your magnesium, you're sleeping decently, right? And things just aren't working out. You've taken all these different herbs that you were told they were supposed to be calming and get rid of anxiety, right? And and it just isn't working. It might be time to go in deeper and start peeling off the layers and see what else is causing it, right? And so this is where I think this could be super helpful to work with a practitioner who really understands how to work carefully and in steps and support the body in a way that not only that gets rid of basically of the causes, and not only improving most likely anxiety, but probably going to improve a lot of other symptoms that you're experiencing, right?
Exactly.
Including sleep. And so Tracy, in your private practice, like what do you see some of the other like surprising reasons what causes anxiety that like they totally have been having blind spots, or their practitioners have blind spots on that you see?
Yeah, that's a really good question. My next category was going to be infections. So parasites, Lyme, there are all kinds of different viruses. We live in a microbial world. So there's so many infections people often don't know they have. Because a lot of people think if they have a parasite, they're going to have diarrhea and vomiting, and that's not necessarily true. Lyme, a lot of people I haven't been bitten by a tick. There's more and more research showing it can be transmitted through saliva. And if you are immunocompromised, say you've been exposed to mold or metals and you have a compromised immune system, then you're more likely to be able to get sick through other means. And not just ticks, but all kinds of insects like mosquitoes and other insects and birds can transmit. Now we're not calling it Lyme, it's tick-borne illness. Now they're calling it vector-borne illness because anything can transmit it. So that's something people miss a lot. They'll have like a low grade. They don't have full-on Lyme disease, but they have a low grade situation going on. And then another thing I see a lot is I like to run something I call it like a metabolic psych panel, but it looks at your histamine levels. High histamine or mast cell activation, huge anxiety driver. I also like to look at people's free copper, not just your copper, but your free copper. You have to calculate that mathematically using ceruloplasmin. and zinc levels in your zinc to copper ratio. Anyway, there are these different mineral ratios that can be driven by genetics or environment or infections that can actually drive up anxiety in your brain. And people are amazed that when they, figured out that you get the exact testing, like test, don't guess, when you find out exactly what's going on and you address it. And then this isn't a surprise, but hormones. But I don't know that people realize, like insulin is a hormone, so even blood sugar is hormonal, right? And I know Magdalena has versed you guys in this really well, but I think for you guys, it's not a surprise that if people have estrogen dominance, low progesterone, low testosterone not only gives you confidence, libido, muscle, it does a lot of things, but it actually, if you have low testosterone as male or female, this can cause anxiety, especially social anxiety. And so, I'm trying to think if there are any other strange things that people wouldn't
I'm
realize.
sure we'll come out. Let's talk a little bit about hormones, and I want to circle back. Actually, let's ask our audience here: who here is experiencing social anxiety, or like you really drag yourself to go to an event or a family gathering, and instead of being like open and wanting to have conversations, you are just really all you want to do is sit in a corner and just be left alone, and you can't wait to get the heck out of this room and go home and be by yourself. So how many of you here are experiencing that? Because actually that can be a condition. It's not just especially, yeah. And so we can talk about that, but let's see whether we have anybody experiencing that here. And if we are, then we'll talk about it. If not, then we'll just move on. While waiting for that, because there's a bit of a delay on the transmission, there's a good question that came in from Yoga Chic on Instagram, and she's saying, my anxiety is terrible since I'm going through perimenopause. I also have issues with blood sugar imbalance. Please help. What do you say to that?
Yeah, that's a big one. And here's the thing that a lot of people miss. So it's not only like I gave you the big chunky categories, but here's an example. Okay, let's say you eat a perfect diet and you still have blood sugar issues. Like what gives? Well, sometimes small intestinal bacterial overgrowth can actually cause blood sugar issues that actually drive up anxiety. So an infection in your small intestine can actually be screwing up your blood sugar, right? So there are all these, also heavy metals can affect your blood sugar. There's so many things that it can affect blood sugar besides, diet and lifestyle, which are important. And again, I'm seeing people not eating enough fats, not eating or good fats, not eating enough protein. So yeah, if you're having blood sugar issues and anxiety, they're probably connected. And
yeah,
I see this a lot.
Let's talk about the perimenopause aspect, because
Absolutely.
one of the things that starts dropping really quickly in perimenopause is progesterone, right? And do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, sure. So one of the things I really want to drive home is all the attention we're getting on the nervous system and nervous system dysregulation, nervous system regulation, somatic work, trauma. That whole world is super legit. And trauma isn't, there's like childhood trauma and event trauma that happens, but then there's just daily life stressors that the body processes as trauma. Your body processes infections and poor nutrition, and your anything that makes your body not feel safe is going to be processed is somewhere on the spectrum from little t to big T trauma. And when you're trying to do this handoff from the ovaries to the adrenals, making precursors to hormones, especially progesterone and other sex hormones, and you're super stressed out, as it's interesting because when you look at cultures going through menopause all over the world, and you look at the cultures where people have a positive menopause experience and don't have all this horrible anxiety and mental health issues and symptoms, not only do they have a better lifestyle, they actually are people that usually gain status. They're not stressed out about going through menopause because they gain personal freedom and status as they age. This happens in Mayan cultures, that happens in India and the Middle East, Greece, Japan. So there's a culture, there's a lot of, they're called like biopsychosocial factors, but how your biology dances with your culture and your beliefs. And so it's such a big picture. And so when we're living in a world that's completely toxic, overwhelming, stressful, we've never in the evolutionary history of humans had so much access to information about bad things happening in the world, right? And then we're trying to go through this process of this hormonal handoff. And it's almost too much to ask your body to do in this day and age. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, I was looking more, I was looking more at, one of the symptoms of perimenopause is women are beginning not to sleep, start feeling anxious, right? And feel very unrested, unsettled. And so, we know now, knowing perimenopause, the hormone that starts dropping the quickest is progesterone. And you know that from once your luteal phase is getting shorter and shorter, that's your indication that your progesterone, and it's typically progesterone starts dropping faster than anything else. Only then estrogen follows. And so that can impact sleep, but also bring out a lot of anxiety, right? So that's why we have quite a number of ladies here talking about anxiety and perimenopause.
Correct. Yes. Yeah, I was jumping like 3 layers deeper. So yes, absolutely.
Right.
When your progesterone tanks, progesterone is like a natural antidepressant, anti-anxiety hormone. And so when that tanks, or you have too many xenoestrogens, like the bad kind of estrogens, and your ratios are off, then absolutely.
Yeah.
Huge.
And this could be something as simple as just correcting your progesterone levels, right? That it doesn't have to be that complicated. There is also a question that just came in saying, I don't know whether it's Jovita or Josita. I've had unresolved anxiety for many years. Now in perimenopause, I've had sudden sleep apnea. I hear that there is a hormone anxiety connection with sleep apnea as well. So can I just say one other thing? The progesterone is one thing, and the other thing is just a really fascinating book for those of you who are interested in a whole hormone brain connection. The menopause brain is a fascinating read where she talks about like literally every part of our brain having estrogen receptors. And so everything from cognitive decline to now we are showing early onset of Alzheimer's can be caused by low estrogen levels, hot flashes, which also obviously start in the brain, but even things like our physical balance. And I remember, 3 years ago is when hot flashes really started. 3-4 years ago when hot flashes really started hitting me. It was on my first trip in the camper van. And I remember like how clumsy I felt. Like I felt very uncoordinated, which is not something you want to feel when you're in a camper van. You're very physical and, moving around and reaching out for things, and feeling clumsy and dropping things is really just not. And I was like, it's interesting that it showed up at the same time with the hot flashes. So,
right.
Estrogen can play a huge role in here. The other thing that we see a lot with perimenopause is dropping thyroid hormone.
Right.
So I'll let you talk about the thyroid in just a second, but I would just tell you guys, like, I was diagnosed in 2008 with Hashimoto's disease, right? And I was really lucky to be diagnosed really quickly. And one of the pivotal symptoms was when I got a full-on panic attack. Well, I still remember being in a shopping mall, and I had this imaginary fear of something that happened with a client who was really important. It was like the Johnson & Johnson or Neutrogena, whoever was that client. And I remember, pulling out my laptop, desperately wanting to get connected to the internet and send them an explanation email, which I did. And the following day, I looked at it again and I'm like, what was I thinking? Like, this is so out of line. It was embarrassing. But and I thought, wow, if people feel like this on a daily basis, like how incredibly debilitating can that be?
Oh yeah, it's a nightmare. It's the worst pain I've ever had in my life. I've been in a car wreck. I've had a head injury. I've been through so much physical pain. Like it's just anxiety is one of the most gut-wrenching, torturous pains. It's like inside, you can't get it out. It's like in your consciousness, and it shapes the perceptual lens through which you see reality. It's like you're in a hall of mirrors where everything's so distorted, and it feels like you're looking out into this like really scary world, and it's really hard to function. It's hard to realize your dreams. It's hard to make, the kind of money you want to make. It's hard to be there for your family and friends. It's hard to, it makes everything hard, and it's so hard on your body. And there's a lot of research showing the more trauma, stress, anxiety people have, the more risk there is of cognitive decline, the more risk there is of, all other kinds of like autoimmunity. I consider autoimmunity like immunological PTSD. And, it's just, and I'm not trying to give you anxiety about anxiety, but I want to empathize that it sucks. Like it really sucks. It's awful. And that's why I don't want anyone to believe people, oh, it's just hereditary, or, oh, it's just this or that or the other. It's like, don't settle for that. You can figure out what's causing it, and there are solutions, but they have to work with the intelligence of nature. That's why I don't judge anyone for being on medications. I get it. I understand why you're on medications, but just it's important to realize they can't fix the underlying problem.
Can we talk a little bit about, actually, kind of want to go back to the blood sugar imbalance, because I think so many people are not aware of, or just, this one of the things that I think our common friend Trudy Scott told me that it's shocking how few people realize, connect the dots when it comes to hypoglycemic response and having a full-on anxiety attack. Could you explain that? Like,
Yeah.
why does it happen? When does it happen to a person?
So if you're in a, here's trying to think about where to pick this up. Yeah. So if your blood sugar tanks, your body's going to go into a complete I'm not safe signal. And what I see with a lot of people with chronic anxiety is having, being anxious. And so people are anxious, especially in the morning. So they don't want to eat. They're like, I'm anxious, I'm not going to eat. And then they have a blood sugar drop. And then they're anxious because they didn't eat. And then because they're anxious, they don't eat. And then they're in this loop of not eating. And then a lot of people, when they're running anxious, tend to want things like fruit or carbohydrates and not eat enough protein and fat.
I'm gonna bring back up my blood sugar levels, right?
Right. Yeah. And people, and that's another myth, is like, I'm going to balance my blood sugar by eating sugar. That's actually not how it works. You need protein, fat, and fiber with carbohydrates to balance your blood sugar.
What's your, one of my biggest pet peeves is the way Americans eat breakfast. Right?
I know.
Basically, dessert.
All about the savory breakfast. I'm on board with you with the savory breakfast.
And including for those of you who are going to be very unhappy when I say it, and I'm going to say it anyway, oatmeal with your yogurt
with fruit and sugar and
ain't good breakfast. Is not healthy breakfast. Okay, it's all converts to sugar at the end of the day, and that yogurt, that 4 or 5 grams of protein you are getting, enough.
Yes, I see it all the time in intakes with people. Is their breakfast is just all carbs, hardly any protein. Almost everyone, or they just skip breakfast. And
what's your favorite kind of
coffee? Coffee on an empty stomach.
Yes.
That's a recipe for anxiety and blood sugar issues. Yeah.
What's your favorite kind of breakfast?
I eat like some kind of eggs or meat, or, you can have soup for breakfast. There's no rule. Like if you look at cultures, there are a lot of cultures, they don't eat eggs for breakfast. Actually, I lived in Spain. No one ate eggs for breakfast. That was like a lunch or dinner food. So yeah, but I do eat eggs for breakfast, or, I eat different kinds of really high quality meats. I like to have some veggies for breakfast sometimes. But you know what? Sometimes I'll have bone broth and fruit because I feel like I might need fruit that day. But sometimes I don't really have significant carbohydrates for breakfast. So it's just kind of
it's all
blood sugar. Oh, go ahead.
It's all the matter of context, right? Like if you combine that fruit with some good protein, fat, and fiber, it's not a big deal. But it's like I know you said soup, and I bet you that 90% of people will be like, what, soup? And here's the funny thing is, right, like if you go to markets like around Peru, or you go to Japan, it's like they literally have miso soup with a whole bunch of things like rice and fish. And if you go to Morocco, they actually have a bean soup for breakfast with an egg on top. And so it's just really, it always is savory food. There's a reason why we do not eat sweet stuff around the world for breakfast. So that's a really great, easy starting point.
Well, breakfast is like you're breaking a fast, whatever. So going straight to sugar after your body hasn't been, eating all night, is a little bit of a shock to the system. That's why I really do recommend protein, fat, and fiber. And by fiber, I don't mean Metamucil or like, Kellogg's cereal. I mean like produce, like vegetables, root vegetables, pumpkins, fruit, but with other non-starchy veggies and things like that. But good amount of protein, good amount of good quality fat, not canola oil. And, and then just protein, fat, and fiber within 1 to 2 hours of waking. And by the way, to me, it's a myth that if you run anxious, this is not the time for intermittent fasting, like skipping meals. And this is not the time there's some extenuating circumstances, but I really don't recommend people going on a strict keto, like zero carb, super low carb diet when you're, running anxious and your nervous system's dysregulated. And I also see with a lot of functional practitioners who are brilliant and wonderful, there are a lot of supplements that you wouldn't think would drive up anxiety. And
yes, let's talk about that. That's a huge topic.
Yeah. So this is something I see all the time. Like people be like, I got put on this, they get put on glutamine to seal their gut lining, and glutamine upregulates glutamate, which can make you anxious. There are even calming herbs like L-theanine, phosphatidylserine, and there are all kinds of different herbs that can drive up anxiety in different people. Even magnesium bisglycinate, and some people can, but not everybody. So it's important. one of our jobs is to be good at pattern recognition. And so I've gotten better and better at really helping people figure out what supplements are going to be neutral to their nervous system or support their nervous system. And B vitamins, if you're someone who does something called hypermethylation, then you could actually take B vitamins, because you can go online and read what are natural ways to treat anxiety. And you're going to read, to take B vitamins. And if you don't take the right ones for your genetics or whatever the deal is, it can make you really jittery to take B vitamins. So it's like, that's why, it's important to have help navigating, unless you're like really versed in this. And this is something I would actually like to educate more practitioners about, because some people are unwittingly driving up people's anxiety. Even certain amino acid supplements, like branched chain amino acids, people take L-carnitine or whatever, for working out or muscle building, and they'll often get more anxiety. And what's happening in a lot of people, it's like you have a bucket, call it your bucket of burdens. You have this bucket of things that are stressing your body out, and there's so many of them that just changing one isn't going to fix everything. So people will say, well, I tried stopping gluten and that didn't fix it. And then I tried quitting caffeine and that didn't fix it. Then I tried taking this supplement and that didn't fix it. Because it's like, I like to use the metaphor of a combination lock. So if you have a combination lock, you need to get multiple numbers in the right order before it will open. So if you try to like detox too fast or do an aggressive parasite cleanse and take all these supplements that don't work, you're going to make yourself sicker and more anxious, and you could push yourself off the deep end psychiatrically. And so that's why it's important to do things, the right things, all the things in the right order to unlock, decode your anxiety or crack your anxiety code or whatever the thing is.
Yeah. Okay. That's huge. And, and also, speaking of like, oral stuff, even things like oral progesterone can, in some people, it's paradoxical. It's not majority of people. This is a very small percentage, but it can happen. It happened to a friend of ours as well, converting, oral progesterone to, instead of, to too much glutamate, right? And that basically it makes a person anxious instead of calming her down. The whole purpose of progesterone is to convert to allopregnanolone, which then works on the GABA receptors, and that's the reason why so many. If you follow me for a while, you know that I actually switched to, like, this is my oral progesterone right here, right? Because that helps me sleep. Because it works on the GABA receptors, right? But it's and I'm still using topical, but that's not gonna be, that's for different things. So and some people convert it too much to glutamate, and it can be causing anxiety, right? So completely paradoxical response. And I know you said there is a way to stop the conversion to glutamate, right?
Well, you kind of want to just not upregulate in the first place, because you want more GABA and less glutamate, right? And here's another thing. I see people, they take GABA, which doesn't cross the blood-brain barrier, and actually it can end up upregulating, because you take so much GABA, your body trying to balance itself will upregulate glutamate instead of making more. So it's it's like a little bit of a minefield to navigate through that. And then
that's why you call yourself a detective, right?
And then also over supplementing anything that affects serotonin, whether it's SSRIs. If you over support serotonin and dopamine are kind of like on a seesaw. So if you like really drive up serotonin, you can drive down your GABA, your dopamine. And then if you have low dopamine, that can affect not only, there are issues around ADHD and anxiety. Anyway, it's a whole world, but it can get complicated. And so if you're trying not to drive up glutamate, honestly, the best thing is to, I do have like a little bit of a backdoor hack that works for not everybody, but a lot of people, is butyrate. Can actually, like a tributyrin or butyrate supplement, can help bring down glutamate as a kind of a backdoor GABA support form that doesn't necessarily drive up glutamate from over supporting GABA by taking GABA as a supplement. And GABA can help for a little while and then stop working. That's another thing I see all the time, is people take things and they'll work for a little while, then they stop working because they're not fixing the problem, or one trying to rebalance it this way, then you're driving it the other way. And trying to sedate anxiety, just like, I'm just going to sedate myself with drugs or herbs or whatever. It's like trying to hold a beach ball underwater. Right. One thing that's interesting about cannabis is you have to be careful with the sourcing, with the method of ingestion. I'm not a fan of gummies, Rick Simpson oil, all that stuff. Rick Simpson might be okay if you have cancer or something, but like taking really strong weed and smoking it, or in a gummy with sugar where it's super highly processed and pharmaceuticalized. I'm not a huge fan. If you're going to use cannabis, and I know it's illegal in a lot of places, but for where it's legal, you want it organic, you want it mild, you want it high CBD, low THC, you want a dry herb vaporizer or like something extracted in MCT oil drops. You want to do minimal microdosing. You need to take days off from it. It can downregulate mast cell activation. It can help break up limbic system loops and create new thoughts when you're caught in the loop. You have to be careful with it though. Same thing with like microdosing and psychedelics and all these things people are calling plant medicine. I'm like, since when are I like to joke. I'm like, since when is a mushroom a plant? It's a fungi. But anyway, that aside,
Yeah.
but
Um,
people can go really off the deep end, like with even these therapeutic things that can be helpful in a very targeted environment. People can get more anxious or more mentally ill doing too many psychedelics. So careful.
Totally agreed. Hey guys, so for those of you who are struggling with anxiety for a long time and you've done a lot of baseline work and your practitioner and yourself can't figure it out, I highly recommend for you to work with Dr. Tracy. You can be found on Inner Genius Health, is that correct? .com?
Yes.
Yeah, on innergeniushealth.com, and you can work with Dr. Tracy Potter there. She is taking patients again. She wasn't for a while, she is now. So this is your opportunity to really work with her. It's it's interesting because we both have a friend who is gone through a medical crisis, and I've asked Dr. Tracy to help out with her case, and it is definitely a very complicated. It's a complex case of someone having anxiety is just one of the symptoms, and but it's a debilitating sense of anxiety, which for those of you who know, it's like it just keeps you completely in a sense state of paralysis, right? Of like you can't like even move forward to figure out your day, what you can do for yourself.
It's like a prison. It's like a prison.
A prison, yeah. So so I got a new sense of appreciation for her depth of knowledge and understanding of how multifactorial anxiety is and how complex that whole world can be. So if that is you, I highly recommend for you to consider working with her.
Thanks.
Okay, so there's a couple of comments that are coming in. Let's just address those, Tracy.
Sure.
So someone is saying here, she's saying, I just seen a gastroenterologist and she put me on pills, I guess. I can eat enough to digest and cleanse, but I'm still backed up. I'm currently drinking a lot of water and playing the balancing the gut game.
Yeah. And here's what I'm curious about is if you've done a functional gut test. And, like, I'm so sorry that functional labs are not covered by insurance. That's sad and unfortunate and it sucks. But it's just if you can at all, like most functional labs will actually let you do 0% interest payment plans where you can pay for a lab over 4 months, to make it more affordable. But doing an advanced gut test, I love the Gut Zoomer it's a silly name, by Vibrant Labs. That's my very favorite one. The GI Map's pretty decent too. There's some other good ones too.
What about doctor's data?
Yeah, that one's okay. Yeah. I'm partial to the Gut Zoomer because I just love how many markers it does. It's just more markers and I like the way they organize information. I'm also an information maven. Like I really like data. I'm a big giant nerd, but also emotional support human. So, but yeah, that's the thing is I actually worked with I've actually had gastroenterologists as clients. I had to actually teach a gastroenterologist how to wean off of acid blockers. And I was talking to another, he was more of like a friend gastroenterologist, really great doctor, but he said, I'm not taught how to heal a gut. I can scope you. I can give you things that kill things. I can give you acid blockers, but I don't know how to restore microbiome. I don't know how to heal a gut. I was not taught that in medical school. So if you went to a gastroenterologist that wasn't trained in functional or integrative health, that doesn't really know their stuff, then yeah, that's all they can do. They can be wonderful, smart, brilliant, wonderful people. And that's their toolbox. Their toolbox is very small.
Yeah. Talk to us a little bit about like, how do you generally work with a person?
So usually the way I work with people is I have a program, a natural anxiety solutions program that I take people through. And so then we do in-depth assessments. We at the very least do this gut lab. It's amazing what you learn from it, not just about your gut health, but about your neurological health, your organ health. It's amazing how your microbiome is a mirror of your overall health. So we do that. I teach you I'm a proponent of something I call healthy hedonism, which, because people used to say, I don't want to eat healthy, I'm a hedonist. I'm like, well, I'm a bigger hedonist than you, because I not only want to enjoy things now, I want to feel good in the future. So I'm all about using pleasure as a doorway to healing, increasing your total pleasure, but displacing self-destructive pleasures with pleasures that work with you and not against you. And so we have support around lifestyle, which is your daily thoughts, actions, environment, relationships. I recommend labs. We order labs and look at your lab work. I do work with supplements. I love so many of Magdalena's supplements. What else? And then we do nervous system work. So I help people retrain your brain. So to get you out of those loops of anxiety, to calm your brain down. So I help you with like limiting beliefs, with emotions, and just literally restructuring how your brain is wired. And I teach practices you can do in 5 to 15 minutes a day that will change your life. And we go through a program like that. I do single sessions too sometimes, but I don't find that people get the same results as when they actually go through an entire proven process that has helped so many people.
So do you currently have group programs that are opening up, or do you work with one-on-one patients, or do you have?
That's something you and I were talking about. So I definitely work with one-on-one people, and I am open to start a group if people are interested. I am so busy right now, I don't have the bandwidth to do a full-on launch, but I might do that at some point. But if anyone wants to reach out to me and say, hey, I saw you on Magdalena's Live, you can reach out to me on Instagram or at my website on the contact form, say I'm interested in a group program. I would put one together for you guys, for her community.
I think there was a conversation at one point, this was a few months ago, on our Hormone Thrivers page. There was a conversation about anxiety, and then I put your page on. People said it's amazing, they want to work with you, and we kind of never followed through on that. So for those of you here who want to create a group, especially because there's yet another question that's just come in about why is women in perimenopause and menopause more prone to anxiety. If you're just dealing with this whole anxiety just really being amplified, well, when you enter perimenopause, then might be a really great group to create, because there's probably going to be a lot of similarities.
Right.
Obviously, everybody's going to be different, but there's probably a common thread here. Correct hormones as a starting point, checking out your thyroid, looking at gut health and all that good stuff. Let's just address a couple of those things about perimenopause and like a higher occurrence of anxiety in women. So let me just tell you what comes up in mind for me, and then fill in the gaps for us, okay? So we talked about dropping progesterone. For those of you the questions are coming in now on Instagram, and you might have missed the first part. We talked about dropping progesterone can be the cause. Dropping estrogen can be the cause. Dropping estrogen can bring down your thyroid. So checking your thyroid is going to be super important. Low thyroid function or high thyroid function or fluctuating hormone function can cause anxiety.
Or brain brain autoantibodies. So antibodies against your brain from autoimmunity.
Right, from Hashimoto's. And guess what? The highest occurrences of Hashimoto's disease is actually women who are postpartum, right after having a baby, is probably because of the trauma. After any kind of trauma, regardless of the age, right? And then number 3 is women who go into perimenopause and menopause. So those are I think in itself is kind of, a stressor for the body. One other thing that I think just came to mind for me, because you talked about the microbiome, something that is highly overlooked and is the fact that when our estrogen starts dropping, we start experiencing a lot of changes in the microbiome as well. And not just the microbiome in the gut, but also, for those of you who remember, in September, we did a big push on the uterine health for the first time, and talking about why do you suddenly have those UTIs and BV and candida, overgrowth that you've never had before, right? Like, and then why you're having suddenly all these dental changes, right? Which is, again, you've got your own microbiome in your mouth, you've got your own microbiome in the vagina, you've got your own microbiome in the gut, and all of those bacterial changes can happen with the decline of estrogen.
Right.
The body just becomes too alkaline actually in those parts, and there's a die of a certain bacteria. So correcting, so what do? You correct your estrogen levels for starters, right? Which can be done through herbs, can be done through bioidentical hormones. Um, so that's like a few things that comes up for me. What do you think? Like, what else would you
Yeah.
say?
Well, like just plugging into that, just like the role of the brain and nervous system. Again, like when your hormones start tanking for whatever reason, because of stress, because of diet, because of, you know, I'm careful to say age, but it's true, like wear and tear on the body, spending more time on the planet. And, as your body starts to struggle to do that handoff, and, we're in this toxic, stressed out world, even people who take really good care of themselves, like I was taking good care of myself and I lived in a house that was contaminated. And so people are just, our bodies can't keep up. And that's a huge stressor on the nervous system. So as your hormones are tanking, your body's struggling to just do basic body processes. And that's a stressor on the nervous system. And then the nervous system is stressed out. That tanks your hormones. So you end up in a feedback loop between the nervous system and your biology, your cells, your hormones. And it becomes a downward spiral. And I think what Magdalena and I are trying to do is help you get back on an upward spiral. So, your body can find balance in this pretty imbalanced world, and in an imbalanced culture. We live in a toxic culture that has normalized, this is something I remember Gabor Mate said once in an interview: our culture rewards us for betraying ourselves. And
Mm,
so we're not taught on a cultural level to care for ourselves. And that's why I love having friends like Magdalena, where we eat healthy together, and we get in the hot tub, get in the sauna, like, we do things, we go on hikes, we do things that are supportive and uplifting. We emotionally support each other, right? And so I think there's a much bigger, I may be straying from your original question, but I feel like there's a bigger cultural perspective here around the nervous system. And we say nervous system, but there are nervous system practices I teach, but being around trees is a nervous system practice. Hearing water running, being by a river or looking at a lake, or, just natural beauty, being outdoors, breathing fresh air, getting sunlight on you, those are nervous system practices. Getting a hug, snuggling with your cute doggies, Magdalena.
yeah.
So it's just our nervous systems need so much extra nurture and so much extra love in a culture that's taught to just suck it up, sacrifice yourself for everybody else, eat a bunch of sugar, be addicted to all kinds of things, self-medicate with alcohol.
Glorifying the glass of wine at night.
Yeah, exactly. Like the evening glass of wine. How about like a cup of tea by the fireplace, beautiful herbal teas. This planet, oh my God, this planet is so abundant with fragrant, beautiful, gorgeous plants that you can make into herbal teas that are also medicine, or the foods we can eat. Like there's so many millions of edible species, and we fetishize sugar, we fetishize wheat, we fetishize, there's like five foods that are these big agricultural cash crops that we're over focused on, and we're missing the bounty of life, we're missing the beauty, we're missing what's possible. We're not even taught on, you look at people have terrible communication, like all drama on TV shows and movies, Hallmark specials, whatever. It's like everyone has terrible communication, terrible emotional intelligence, and just upping your communication and emotional intelligence takes a huge stress off. I have stuff on that in my program.
Yeah.
Like it's very thorough, and so, yeah, it's just, we really need nurture. I want us to co-create a culture of nurture instead of a culture of self-destruction.
I love that. One of the things that I stopped doing was, like, I used to have like a little routine of looking at all the news. I would look at, like the BBC, the Guardian, look at the New York Times, which I completely stopped reading, Washington Post, right? Just to kind of like get the different angles of what's going on. And then the result was that I was just starting the day from like a place of absolute anger, frustration, hopelessness, right? And
Right.
so completely changed that now to, I did meditation for a while now. I do Spanish, for an hour every day. So So I just changed it that way. But it was just like not even watching that negativity. What a difference it made from starting the day. Just a simple little thing like that.
And the thing is, you'll still find out stuff. Like, even if you're not like
Yeah.
glued to your TV, it's so repetitive. Like, you're going to find out. Like, it's not like
And
you
by
can
the
say,
way, for those of you who watch news, and I think a lot of the time, I think that the model is the husband wants to watch the news late at night. Anyway, watching news late at night is like what's what your brain is gonna continue processing when you are going to sleep. So
so
just
true.
keep that in mind. One
So
other
true.
thing I want to mention, like somebody mentioned here, meditation, deep abdominal breath work, great.
Diaphragmatic breathing. Yeah.
It's wonderful, and I just wanna kind of say here that I think one of the genius things that you do is not looking at one or these point solutions, because that's the kind of stuff that gets us into trouble, frustration, disillusion with these holistic practices, and we end up taking medication that like, oh, I did all this breath work, it's not working, I'm not getting rid of my anxiety. Because here's the thing, is this person is having, let's say, a thyroid issue, low progesterone, she's having her 2 glasses of wine at night to calm the crap out, right? And and starts her day with a sugary breakfast, all of that,
Coffee.
thinking not much of a coffee, right? Not thinking much of any of those things because they're not really bad per se, right?
Right.
um
It's the
you know
combination
the
with your
the
situation.
sitting and doing the deep abdominal work itself like ain't gonna fix it, right? And so this is why I feel like these kind of modalities are just an incredible adjunct to the healing journey. But that's why, like in meditation, when you do like a proper meditation and meditation center like in India,
Hmm.
they make you the Ayurvedic, not just Ayurvedic, sorry, there's a word for it. I'm forgetting the word right now, but it's a kind of food with got no onions and garlic, because
Yeah.
they don't want you to fart. So many people are having gut issues. No, it's literally because it's like, how can you meditate when you're all bloated, right? And not only are you disturbing your neighbor, but you are now, in every way with all your farts and the smell. But you also like you yourself can't meditate when you're all like, you're just sitting there just bloated like a balloon, right? So it really is a combination of modalities that we need to address. And one is going to work better for another, for one person more so than for another, right? That's another beauty of our bodies.
And I wanted to touch on the whole holiday thing because we did say we were going to do that. And I
Yes.
think I think at this point, like you might have figured out that if the alcohol, the sugar, the stress, the whatever, if that's driving anxiety, if that's making your biology struggle more, on top of going through perimenopause or menopause, and your body's already struggling, and then you throw in family trauma, and then you self-medicate with more alcohol, and then use caffeine to get through all the gift shopping and the stuff with the kids and like it's, and then at a time of day when we're getting less sunlight, a time of year, sorry, when we're getting
Yeah.
less sunlight. So it's like this combination of if you're going to be involved, like if you're going to see your family and their family, maybe you have a super harmonious family with no trauma, well, congratulations, you won the lottery, because that's not most families. And so you're dealing with, they're even like small family triggers, they don't have to be huge, but there might be like things with siblings or things with in-laws or whatever that just create an extra tension. And then why do we celebrate the season with lots of sugar, which causes inflammation of your brain and nervous system, screws up your microbiome, feeds infections, damages your liver, damages your brain, damages your cell membranes, accelerates aging? Like, how sweet is that? I mean, you can have healthy desserts. Magdalena rocks with the dessert. Oh my god, she makes the best desserts. Oh my god. Anyway, like, I hope you guys have her cookbooks because they're amazing. But anyway, so we can still have sweet treats and desserts, and that's fine. And I still believe in having decadent, wonderful sensory meals where we use herbs and spices and things are colorful and beautiful and balanced. Like, yes, like let's celebrate with food and let's celebrate with connection and all that. That's a way to celebrate. But celebrating with self-destruction, that's brainwashing we received from our culture that's just trying to turn us into consumers who live long enough to spend money and contribute labor to society. But there's nothing about mainstream messaging that's really truly teaching us emotional intelligence or wisdom or how to have the most amazing life possible. That's something we're going to have to choose to sort out for ourselves, that we're going to have to find other paths that are going to take us where we want to go. Because if we wait for the rest of society to like wake up and catch up and whatever, we're going to be very limited in the quality of life we're going to have. You can have the most amazing life. Life can be so magical and beautiful and fulfilling and wonderful and sensual and, hedonistic in a good way, healthy hedonism. Life can be amazing. It can really be amazing. You can change the perceptual lens through which you see reality. You can use meditation and stuff, but you have to do top down, bottom up. Top down is how your consciousness shapes your biology, and bottom up is how your biology shapes your perception, reality, and your consciousness. And if you don't do both, you're not going to have the amazing life. You're not going to heal. And if you just do one little thing at a time haphazardly and try to DIY it, that's, I hope it works for you. I just don't know that it will. And it doesn't have to be me that helps you. It can be someone else, but just, get support.
Do you have any hacks for, like, if you decide to drink alcohol or have more sugar during the holidays, like how to balance things out and offset maybe the potential result, which is anxiety
Yeah,
causing?
absolutely. I mean, I'm sure you've taught some of this stuff too. Like, for example, I have people take some extra NaC with milk thistle, like with or around alcohol. That really helps prevent a hangover and just helps your body handle it better. And milk thistle helps repair the liver. It's still not the equivalent of not drinking, but it really helps do damage control. If you're going to drink wine and you're anxious, that could drive up histamine levels. Wine is very high histamine. So you could take quercetin, or there's this product called D-Hist by Orthomolecular Products. Seeking Health has one called Histamin X. Just something to drive down those histamine levels so the wine doesn't give you anxiety and as much of a hangover the next day. I would eat, again, protein, fat, and fiber before the dessert. Eat plenty of protein, veggies. That'll leave less room for dessert, but it'll also just kind of level out your blood sugar. So when you do eat dessert, and then try to eat better quality desserts, try to, eat things sweetened with like paleo sweeteners, like honey and dates and maple syrup and monk fruit, pure monk fruit or whatever. But, try not to eat the junky desserts. And I love, with my mom, we have like a gluten-free, we do gluten-free holidays. We don't eat cow dairy. We do like goat and sheep dairy and whatever. That's just what works for us. I'm not telling you guys what to eat, but it's just, if you can celebrate by just swapping out ingredients. And I like to say, keep the ritual, but sub the substance. So still have the ritual of having like a beverage you enjoy, have the ritual of delicious, wonderful food, but we don't have to put molecules in our bodies that damage them just to fit in or celebrate. That's optional.
Okay, let's take a couple of more questions and then we can wrap up. All the questions are coming in on Instagram, so I can't. Okay, let's start off with this one here first. Marilyn is asking, which is the best gut test that's accurate? What's your favorite again? What was the name?
It's subjective what best is, but I like the Vibrant Wellness Gut Zoomer 3.0.
Okay. Vibrant Zoomer 3.0. Okay. All right, we have another question. Let me just copy that over here from Libby. And her question is this. If GI is very affected by hormonal changes in perimenopause, what tests should you recommend, please? It's frustrating even if you live healthy and do everything to support mindfulness, etc.
Yeah, that is frustrating, isn't it? You do all the things. When I was sick, I was doing all the things, best self-care of my life, but I had Lyme mold intoxic, mold, Lyme and lead. So let's see. So I still do recommend, the gut test to figure out why your GI is really affected. But I really like to look at hormones. I like to look at, a comprehensive thyroid panel that looks at antibodies and reverse T3. That those things get skipped a lot. Looking at, I told you about the copper zinc ceruloplasmin. That's kind of, I don't know how technical to get here, like just listing out labs. And it depends on the person, right? Like I don't have everybody do every lab under the sun. I look at your intake. I look at all.
It can become very expensive pretty quickly.
Yeah. And there's an order of operations. Like you have to heal your gut first. So like I would start there and testing hormones, and blood sugar. I also, that's another thing. So you can look at glucose and you can look at insulin, your fasting insulin, and you can look at leptin, but there's a HOMA calculator, HOMA, for insulin sensitivity. So if you get glucose and fasting glucose, fasting insulin from the same blood draw, you can put it through this calculator and see how good your insulin sensitivity is. And that's really important. More, as important as looking at your A1C or just those strict numbers by themselves.
Okay, sounds great. All right, so let's. Some people are asking, is this gonna be recorded? Very valuable information. Yes. So I'm gonna, once we hang up, I'm gonna. It's gonna get posted. Yes. Yeah. Cool. Okay, great. So, innergeniushealth.com. Please reach out to Dr. Tracy if you're in need of working on your anxiety, finding out the underlying causes. I really have not worked with anyone. I haven't worked with you, but I haven't seen anyone having as much of a. I think it's part of it is the experience because life has really kicked your butt.
Yes, I learned this the hard way. And I
Yeah,
want to save
yeah,
you guys. I don't want you guys to go through what I went through. I don't want you guys to struggle like I did. It was hard even knowing what I know. I can't even imagine like you don't even work in functional medicine and you have something like this going on. I want to help you. And if you go to my website, you can schedule a free 30-minute call. I mean, this is for people who are serious about maybe working with me. This isn't just like free sessions for everybody. I can't do that as much as I want to help everybody.
yeah.
But if you're really interested in learning more, we can do a call. If we're a fit to work together, great. If not, no hard feelings. And if you're interested in a group, send me a message, and I'll get together a list of contacts, and then we can get together and have a meeting, and I can propose some options, and we can see if we can figure out something together that'll work for you guys. I'd love to help you. Anxiety it's not a it's not a life sentence.
Yeah.
It's an option. You don't have to have it. And so I want to help you get to where, anxiety might be an occasional emotion, but it's no longer this like debilitating disorder. And to me, anxiety isn't even a disorder. It's a symptom of something deeper. And
Right.
if you listen,
Right.
it's going to get worse and worse. And it's not just going to be anxiety. It's going to be more serious health stuff later.
Yeah, 100%. All right, guys, I hope this is helpful, what you've learned here today. And do reach out to Dr. Tracy if you're struggling with anxiety, you want to work, you need some help. I was just beginning to say that I know quite a number of practitioners who work with anxiety, and they tend to take the playbook that worked for them and apply this to everyone else. And when it doesn't work, then it doesn't work. And oftentimes it happens. And I feel like you have gone through so much yourself that I think your playbook is a lot more detailed, unfortunately, because of your own experiences. But also, I think that there's a level of empathy about your approach that isn't just about. And this is something interesting, you guys. Actually, I want to say that a lot of practitioners, I think me included, I always look more on the physiological side of things, like what's the hormone, what's the deficiency, what's the and not so much on the psychosomatic side of things, the spiritual side of things. And I feel like you have this really nice balance that you bring to the table of looking at those two, but also you're not like woo woo. So it's like, oh, just do that, deep breathing exercises, and that's gonna, and let's
Yeah.
let's call it a day, kind of a thing, because we both know that it's not
I'm not
gonna
going
work.
to be formulaic and tell you, everyone's different. I'm actually coming out with I'm coming out with like a quiz and a little mini program soon within the next month. If you're on my email list, you'll get it. Which you can, there's a free meditation, which is amazing. I don't want to take up too much time, but I call it a magic brain trick meditation. It helps with anxiety, sleep, and pain. In one process, it takes 15 minutes. And once you learn how to do it, you don't need the recording anymore. You can just do it yourself. And it's amazing. And then those people will find out about, there's going to be a thing where you're going to be able to take a quiz, and you're going to be able to see how much of my anxiety are these hidden health issues, how much of my anxiety are my lifestyle choices, and how much of my anxiety is nervous system, emotions, beliefs, that kind of thing, that whole piece, to help you kind of figure out your unique puzzle so that you know where you need the most support. Because people who ignore, you have to do all three. If you ignore your nervous system and just do supplements and lifestyle, you won't get better. If you do any two of the three and leave one of them out, you won't get better.
So what are the three? Nervous system?
Right. So like your nervous system, emotions, all, the touchy-feely brain realm, and then the health issues, all the hormones and infections and gut health, and, all the stuff we've been talking about. I call them the hidden health causes. And then lifestyle, self-care foundations, that kind of thing. And you have to do all three. If you skip one of those, if you overlook one of those areas, and they're all broad, if you overlook even one of those, then you might get better, but you're not going to really get where you want to go.
Yeah, that's so interesting. And none of them you're talking about here is genetics.
No, none of these things are genetic. Now, I'm aware of genetic tendencies, but there's no anxiety gene. There's no mental health genes. There's no
But
You
so
know,
many people, will say to me, I've got this. I tend to be a very anxious person because my mom has been the same way, right? And so, anyway, we need to wrap up.
Yeah,
I
we
need to
do.
get
Yeah, we
going.
learn a lot from our parents. So there are some genetic
Yeah,
proclivities, but they're not
yeah,
deterministic, and we imprint even in the womb the nervous systems of our parents. So, all
yeah, yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much for being
right,
here
thank
today.
you, Magdalena, for your support and all you do in the world to help people. You're amazing. I admire you so much.
Thanks so much, you guys, for all your questions, for being here today, spending some time on your health. And yeah, I will see you soon sometime on this channel. Bye for now.
Hey.
Okay. Oops. She's gone. Hey, friend. Let me know how it goes. You dropped off. I just wanted to tell you. Let's yeah, touch. Let me know how things. Hey, friend. You dropped off. I was just gonna say, let me know. Yeah, no, you didn't have to do that. Okay, so let me know how things are. How things go after the call, and yeah, so that's the one thing. And then the other thing I was gonna say is I lost my entire bag with all my electronics, not my computer bag. So I have my computer and whatnot, but everything else, including like all my microphones, tripods, all the cables, connectors, converters, all gone. I've searched the entire. I mean, the van isn't big, for it to be a mystery. I think it just fell out, and I also lost my tripod. Um, so I'm gonna reorder what I remember and what's most essential for me. And I'm so sorry just to be kind of using you as a mule for, my electronics, but if you don't mind, we're just gonna put that in a duffel bag that Brett is gonna purchase. Okay, I hope that's okay. All right. Yeah, let me know how it goes, and let's keep connected before you come out here. Hey.
Hey, love. Could you check on the internet and see? I got a tsunami warning for Marin.
Oh, okay. Tsunami warning, Marin.
It said the tsunami would have come at 12 o'clock, so now just like 15 minutes, 10 to 13 minutes ago.
Okay, so in the Marin Independent Journal, it says tsunami warning at 12 noon for Bay Area coast after magnitude 7.0 earthquake hits California northwest coast.
7.2?
7.0. 7.0. That's a lot, huh?
Oh, fuck. That's huge.
Yeah, but the thing was like up further up north, like closer to Eureka, the earthquake. And so like Eureka area and is more affected. But
The whole Eureka and the tsunami's hitting Marin? Holy fuck.
okay, so it says the tsunami was expected to reach the San Francisco Bay shortly after noon, with the possibility of widespread dangerous coastal flooding. People were advised to evacuate to higher ground and tall buildings immediately. The Marin Office of Emergency Management ordered evacuations for Marin County's beaches and coastlines. But I mean, you're pretty far away from the beach, though, right?
Yeah, I am. I'm not so worried about that.
Okay.
I'm much like.
Wait, hold on. Okay, wait, it continues on. Wait, the National Weather Service canceled its tsunami warning at noon, which means now.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
But still, a 7 point something, 7.2 or 7.0
7.0.
Earthquake is fucking huge.
Mm-hmm. The earthquake is unrelated to the Bay Area's three major faults. The faults run through. No, this is okay. This is not. No, so it doesn't look like anything is really happening.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what about up in Eureka area? Because like that's a long way away. So it could have devastated that whole area. What is it? Can you look and see what it did to Oregon?
Yeah, so they have a red tsunami warning alert. And let's see, Orchestra, California.
Was it off the coast?
Yes.
It must have been off the coast.
Yeah, it was off the coast. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Affected area. Well, one shows off the coast and the other one shows on the coast. Okay, let's hold on because there's a lot of information here. So let's take a look at AP News. 7.0 magnitude earthquake strikes off northern California. A strong earthquake was felt widely across North California on Thursday, and some residents along its coast were urged to evacuate inland due to the threat of possible tsunami. The earthquake struck at 10:44 a.m. west of Ferndale, a small coastal city of Humboldt County near the Oregon border, according to the U.S. Geological Survey. It was felt as far south as San Francisco, where residents felt a rolling motion for several seconds. It was followed by a small aftershock. The National Weather Service urged residents along the Northern California coastline, including San Francisco Bay Area, to move inland, blah, blah, blah. So you already know that. That's it. I mean, it doesn't look like it just kind of banged and scared the shit out of people, but it doesn't look, and people were had to evacuate, but it doesn't look like much more than that.
Okay, so not much super real damage then to anybody, even up north. Okay, wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, these things are always like so scary because it's like there's so little you can do about it, right?
Yeah, and
a 7.0 is like what was the earthquake in San Francisco that kind of destroyed the city?
Like 7 something, I think, something like that. Okay. I think do a quick search, but I think it was around 7. It leveled the city.
Okay. Okay, so I need to like go to the bathroom and stuff. I have another call in 15 minutes.
Okay.
And
I'll be there in a few hours.
Okay. And so what are you doing? Are you staying here, or what's your Airbnb situation? Did they are you able to go there earlier?
She hasn't called me yet, so I'm going to call her directly and see. She didn't get back to me yet.
Okay. So meet you at the campground?
Yep. I'll see you then. I'm about 2 hours away.
Okay. So like 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock. So when you get here, like, do you want to go out tonight to eat, or would you rather stay in?
You always cook so much. You cook so much. Why don't we go out?
Okay. Sounds good. And then my entire computer bag went missing. I think it fell out of the van. My electronics, I should say my electronics, like connectors, cables, tripods bag fell out. I think it fell out because if somebody wanted to steal something, they could have taken other things. So my computer is fine, everything else, but I'm just restocking everything, and thank goodness for Tracy coming down here, because then she can just bring everything with her. Are you still sending those shoes to her and supplements?
Yeah, I sent the supplements and bought a bag that should be big enough for extra cables. I don't think the shoes will be able to get to her by the 18th. I'm wondering if maybe I could get an address for her in Texas. I need to follow up with the shoemaking company.
Yeah, ask them for also expedited shipping. I mean, to have the shoes, provided they're ready, like 2 weeks shipping.
Yeah, I don't think that's what I know she hasn't even started making them yet.
So. Oh, gotcha. Okay. All right. So that explains. I'm sure Tracy's gonna be fine with that. I just need to ask her, but like maybe just get your facts right and facts in place, and then we'll figure it out from there.
Okay.
All right. Cool. I'll see you in a couple of hours.
Thank you, love.
All right.
Bye.
Ciao.
Oh no, that totally sucks. I tried calling you because I had a couple extra questions. I thought it might be easier to chat than a message back and forth. But yeah, totally fine. Especially if he grabs a duffel bag or whatever, and you can I'll take anything you can fit in it, like as much as you want. It's fine. I'll be your mule. There's something, anyway, remind me to tell you a story about something I brought from Morocco to Spain in a very odd way. So as long as you're not asking me to do that, I'm fine with it. And and then okay, so that's number one. Yes, I'm happy to help you and Brett with whatever you want me to bring, whatever can fit in a bag that I can check with Southwest Airlines. Well, actually, I don't know if it'll be Southwest, but if it's not a free bag, then yeah, if you just cover that, that's cool. Actually, you know what? You don't even need to cover it because like you're letting me stay with you for a week, so I'll just pay for the extra bag. I don't care. Secondly, I was thinking about going through Mexico through customs. I have a client who is Mexican and he's worried about taking his supplements on a trip to Mexico because he's worried about immigration. And I just assumed he could just put pills in a pill box and just, as long as it's not like a ton of them, that, it would be fine to take, his pill boxes for, like a few weeks. But I'm wondering, do you have to take supplements like in a bottle that's labeled, or can you take them in pill boxes unlabeled? And then, the third thing was, I was just curious, like if people, I couldn't see like the questions or how many people were there on the live. So I'm just curious if people came and like what that was like. And I got the email, but it came in at 12:01 p.m. promoting the live, like at the time it was supposed to be starting. That's when it came through. So anyway, I didn't know if that affected, the turnout or whatever, but I just really appreciated you vouching for me, and just my heart feels really happy and supported and all the good things. I just really appreciate it. And I really meant what I said about admiring you and all you do and all you serve and who you are. All right. So those were my 3 things. Okay. Take care. Bye. Oh, also let me know when, I think you said you're going to post the replay. So let me know I don't know with StreamYard if it's any different than, but yeah, I would love to share the replay on my socials. And then I don't know if there's a way to maybe share it via email with my email list. That'd be awesome too. Okay. Thanks again. Bye.